So if you have two terms on top being divided by one term on the bottom, you can rewrite it as 15x to the third divided by 5x. Bring down your plus sign, and now you do 20x squared divided by 5x. Now, you get two results there, and that's your answer. So divide the numbers, subtract the exponents. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and we're left with x to the second power, because 3 minus 1 is 2. Now you bring down your positive. 20 divided by 5 is 4, and x squared divided by x1 is x1. So x, you don't have to put the 1 exponent. This is your answer. Simple enough. You're dividing both terms by the 1 on the bottom. So now, on the second example, I'm not going to rewrite it twice like this. I'm going to do the first step already. So 18x squared divided by 3x would be 6x. Now, negative 24x divided by 3x is negative 8. The x disappears. The x cancels the x here. And that's your answer. Any questions so far? That's the easier part. If there was another number here, then you would do it to the third number also, so it would be another number here. You understand? It doesn't matter how many terms you have here. All of them have to be divided by the bottom number. Clear? Now we get to the factoring section. Factoring polynomials. So what we're going to do here is skip number 1. We're going to do 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then go back to number 1 at the end. Why? Because this thing I wrote here, zero product property, that deals with number 1. So let me show you how to do number 2 on, and then I'll show you at the end how to do number 1. Greatest common factor, G. I'm not writing codes up there. 6CF dash 235. All right. Before I start, let me give you the rundown. Before I let you try those 2 examples, let me give you the rundown. So here's the rundown. Pay attention, this is important, okay? 15x to the 5th plus 45x to the 4th. And they ask you to factor. Now pay attention to this. Factoring is the opposite of distributing, right? So here's a little hint. Whenever you see the word factor, there has to be a parenthesis. Has to be. Because how you factor something is taking it out of the parentheses. So what 2 numbers are we looking at? 15 and 45. This is how you find the greatest common factor of 2 numbers or 3 numbers or 4 numbers. You put them in a T-chart like this. The only one you need to break down is a small number, because C means common. So if it's not common to both, you can't use it. So what's the point of using all the numbers that give you 45 if you can't even use all the numbers that give you 45? All you need to use is the ones that can give you 15. So what times what is 15? 15. 15 times 1 and 3 times 5. Now, G means greatest, which means biggest. What's the biggest number here? 15 is the biggest number. Can 15 go into 45? Yes, it does. 15 times 3. So what is the greatest common factor between these two? 15. You with me? So now, whatever number is the greatest common factor, write it right below this number. So what times what is 15? 15 times 1. And how many x's do you see there? 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 45 is what times what? 15 times 3. The numbers that we used here. How many x's do you see? 4. Now remember, greatest common factor. Let's see what they have in common. They both have a 15. And they both have how many x's? 4. 4 here, 4 here. Whatever you circled is your greatest common factor. It goes outside the parentheses. 15 and 4 x's. Whatever you didn't circle is still in here. What did we not circle here? 1x. What did we not circle here? Positive 3 and nothing else. There's my answer. You with me? I'm going to do like 3 or 4 examples, so don't worry if you don't get it 100% right now. But this problem does lead me to something I need to explain. All right. So let's say, Kira, let's say like probably 40% of this class every year, you didn't know that 15 times 3 is 45, right? Because a lot of people don't know 15 times 3 is 45. You know that 9 times 5 is 45, right? So watch what happens if instead of using the greatest common factor, you just use a factor, not necessarily the greatest. So watch, same problem, but let's say I put 5 times 3 for 15, 5x's, and 5 times 9 and 4x's. So what do they have in common? 5 and 4x's. Are you with me? Pay attention, Alex. So 5x to the fourth comes outside of the parentheses. What stayed in there? 3x. What stayed in the second term? 9. Now look at the parentheses. What do you know about 3 and 9? Don't they have a common factor? What is the common factor between 3 and 9? 3. So this would factor to this, right? But what happens? You took out this at the beginning. If you take out more than one thing, what do you do with them? Multiply them. What's 5x to the 4 times 3? Same answer I got over here. So if you made a mistake, you don't got to start over. You can keep going and then multiply the two things you pulled out. You with me? Let's try another one with all positive numbers, and I'll show you one with negative. What? Every example I do, you need to do it. Everything I write, you need to write so that you have the examples to look back at. Because after you turn it in, you're going to get those back so you can study it in the future. And this is a grade. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You're going to get some to try on your own on the next page. If you want to try one on your own, I'll give you the next one. All right. So, yes, I know that 25 and 100 are both divisible by 5. But is 5 the greatest common factor? No. The greatest common factor between 25 and 100 is 25. Now, how do we know that so quickly? Do we need to write the factors for 100 right now? No. I'm going to start writing the factors for 100, and I'm going to have 16 factors for 100. What good is having 16 numbers if not all can be chosen from? You with me? So, 25, the smaller number. What times what gives you 25? 25 times 1 and 5 times 5. You always start with the biggest number. Oh, yep. 25 times 4 is 100. So we know that these two have a 25 in common. And now use your common sense to figure out how many variables you could take out. If you have two x's here and one here, what do they have in common? Only one x. So I could take out 25x, and what's left in there is x minus 4. You with me? All right. Now we get to the most important of these examples I've been showing you right now. All right, so this is important right here. If the leading coefficient is a negative, then your greatest common factor has to be negative. So what does that mean for this problem? Leading coefficient means the number in the front. If that number is a negative, then whatever you write down as the factors, it has to be a negative. So first, let's get the factors the normal way. 12 and 24. Which one are we going to break down? 12 or 24? 12, the smaller one always. 12 times 1, those are two factors for 12. What are the other factors for 12? 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Now, you want the greatest number here. So start with 12. Can 12 times something give you 24? Yes, 12 times 2. Now, this is where I say, this is where this message comes into play. Leading coefficient is negative, the GCF is negative. So because that first number is negative, we're not going to write 12 times 1 down there. We're going to write negative 12 times 1. How many A's you got? 6 of them. And now we have negative 12 times 2 and 3 A's. Now, what do they have in common? They have a negative 12 and 3 A's. So what am I going to factor out of the parentheses? Negative 12, a to the third. Now, what's left in the parentheses is still in there. 1, a to the third. Not minus, because what's left there? Positive 2. Positive 2. Now, think about it. Negative results. A negative times a positive is a negative. We did it right. So you just have to pay close attention whenever the leading coefficient is negative so you don't get the signs wrong. Easy? Now, a quick example of ZPP, zero product property. Now, let's say you have c squared minus 6c equals 0. Now, what are the two numbers in question here? A 1 and a 6. When it's a 1, you can't factor anything out because a 1 cannot be factored out. So that means that the only thing they have in common is what? A 1 you can't factor out. So what's the only other thing they have in common? A C. There's no 6 on the 1. There's a C. So they both have a C in common. If we took out a C, what's left here? C minus 6. Are you with me? You with me? Now, zero product property comes from like the common sense that anything times 0 equals 0, and 0 times anything equals 0, right? So, because that is true, what I just said, those two statements, you can make each one of these factors equal to 0 and solve them both. The first one's already solved. C equals 0. But the second one, how do you solve that? What do I got to do? What do I have to do to solve for C right here? It's a one-step equation that my son can do. I'm asking you to solve this equation. Nothing special, no special question. Oh my gosh. Guys, how do you solve equation? By doing inverse operation. If you see minus 6, you do plus 6. How do you not know how to solve a one-step equation in the third semester of your ninth grade class? Because this is a ninth grade class. That's crazy. So you have two solutions. You have two solutions. Now, this is something I've told you before. Anything with a 2 exponent is quadratic, which means it's going to be a U shape. A U shape, how many times does it touch the floor? Twice. Twice usually, right? Now, let's say this was a word problem about a grasshopper jumping from this desk onto the ground. Can 0 be an answer? No, because time doesn't stop when the grasshopper jumps. Can 6 be an answer? Yes. So if this was a word problem, you have to pick the correct answer. You can't put 0 and 6 because 0, nothing can happen in 0. You with me? So this is how those two things just coincide. So let's go back now and practice a couple problems. I'm going to do 2. You do the next 2 on your own. So on the first one, leading coefficient is a negative. So that means I have to make sure I put a negative number on the bottom, a negative factor on the bottom. So negative 4 times 4, you have 2 t's here. Negative 4 times negative 5 and a t. Remember, it's a positive 20. What times what gives you positive 20? A negative times a negative. Now, what do they have in common? Negative 4 and a t. So that means my two factors are going to be negative 4t and 4t minus 5. You with me? Yes, whenever you use a zero product property, it has to equal to 0. So if there's a number there, you got to subtract it to take it out. So now watch. This is an example of the zero product property that I'm going to do on that problem right now. Please pay attention to this. The two factors are two things that are being multiplied. That's what factors are. So what's being multiplied? Negative 4t is being multiplied to 4t minus 5. Correct? Make them both equal to 0 and solve them. So how do you solve the first one? Negative 4t equals 0. By dividing both sides by negative 4. What's 0 divided by negative 4? 0. So 0 is one answer. Now how about this one? Plus 5 leaves us with 4t equals 5. And you divide both sides by 4, you get t equals 1.25. If this was a word problem about a grasshopper jumping into the air, falling on the ground, can 0 be an answer? No. Can 1.25 seconds be an answer? Yes. 1.25 seconds is very legitimate. You with me? What? Yeah, that's why I'm erasing, so I have space to do the other ones there. So, 27 and 18. What is the greatest common factor between those? 9 is correct. They're both divisible by 3, but 3 is not the greatest factor. The greatest factor is 9. How about variable-wise? For the variables, what do they have in common? Just an x. 2 x's here, 1x here. How many do they have in common? Only one. Now, what's left in the parentheses? 3x for the first term and positive 2 for the second term. And that's it. These are your two factors. You just factored it. You don't have to use a zero product property every time, only when they ask you. Okay? So, if they don't ask you, those are your factors. If they ask you for the solutions, that's different. Now, look at the blue question. On the blue question, do they have a variable in common? No. So we're not going to touch the variables. The only thing we're going to do is find out what 15 and 3 have in common, which is 3. Now, 3 times what gives you 15? 5, and you have to put the W there. Now, 3 times what is negative 3V? Negative 1V. Obviously, the one I don't write because it's not supposed to be written. So far, so good. Any questions on that one? Now, be very careful with the next two. On the next two, the leading coefficient here is a negative. So make sure you use a negative number when you break these down here. Now, between 4, 8, and 2, what's the greatest common factor? 2. So I'm going to put negative 2 times what would give you negative 4? Positive 2. And it says a squared b, which would mean 2 a's and a b. Now we do negative 2 times 4, because that's what gives you negative 8. 1a, 2 b's. And now we have negative 2 times negative 1, because that's a positive 2, ab. Yeah. So now, what do they have in common? They all have a negative 2. They all have an a and a b. So my final answer is going to be negative 2ab, parentheses. And now what's left? 2a plus 4b minus 1. Yeah. All right. Try the next one on your own. The pink one. Try it on your own. Okay, so on this page, you're just going to solve using the zero product property. But look, you're not doing this by yourself, so please pay attention to me. On the first one, it's already factored. How do you know it's factored? Because there's parentheses. On number two, it's not factored. So you have to factor it and then do the zero product property. Here, same thing. You have to factor and use a zero product property. On the last one, it's already factored for you, so you go straight into the zero product property. So I'm going to do these two. You could do the green ones by yourself. So watch. What are the two factors on the pink question? The first factor is 2d plus 6. What do you do with each factor? Make it equal to 0. What's the other factor? 3d minus 15 equals 0. Now we just solve both, and those are our two answers. Minus 6, that leaves you with 2d equals negative 6. Divide by 2 on both sides, and you get d equals negative 3. On the second one, you're adding 15 to both sides. Leaves you with 3d equals 15. Divide both sides by the coefficient, you get d equals positive 5. If this was a word problem about Mr. Cáceres jumping off of the school building and landing on his feet, which one of these is a real solution? 5. Why is it not negative 3? It's not a real life amount of seconds. You can't do anything for negative 3 seconds. Time only goes forward. You with me? It's common sense, I know, but it's good to hear it over and over. Now look at this one. Before you use the zero product property, everything has to equal 0. Does this equal 0? No. So what I need to do is get these two terms to the same side. So we subtract 3c from both sides, which leaves me with c squared minus 3c equals 0. Now I can factor it. What does c squared and 3c have in common? C. If I took out a c, then what's left in there? C minus 3. You with me? Now that's factor, but this is zero product property. You got to make each factor equal to 0. So c equals 0 is one answer, and the other one, c minus 3 equals 0. How do we solve that? By doing plus 3 to both sides. C equals positive 3. If this was a word problem about Catherine jumping off of this desk right now, which would be a real solution? 3. Because she can't jump for 0 seconds anywhere. You with me? So, same thing I just did on those two questions, I want you to do on 3 and 4. But 3, you have to factor it first, just like I did on this one. And 4, go straight into ZPP, zero product property. I'm going to leave the work and then I erase it to give me space after, but I'll leave it while you're doing the work. All right, I'm going to review it. We'll start off with 3n squared plus 6n equals 0. 3 is 3 times 1, and you have two n's there. If you break down 6, it would be 3 times 2, but that term only has one n. Now, what do they have in common? A 3 and one n. So 3n goes outside the parentheses, and what stayed in there is what I didn't circle, n plus 2. Now the whole point is to make each factor equal to 0 separately. The first factor is 3n. So 3n equals 0 is the first equation I'm going to solve. The next one is n plus 2 equals 0. So let's solve the first one. 3n means 3 times n. Opposite of multiplication, division. So you divide both sides by 3. N equals 0. 0 divided by anything equals 0. Now over here, you just subtract 2 from both sides. You get n equals -2. And those are your two solutions. On the next question, it's already in factored form, so we can already make each parenthesis, which is the factor, equal to 0 and solve it. So 4m plus 2 equals 0. Two steps. Subtract the constant from both sides, and then divide by the coefficient. So we're going to divide by 4 on both sides. M equals -0.5 or -1/2. Now we do the same thing, but to 3m minus 9 equals 0. You add 9 to both sides. 3m equals 9. Divide both sides by the coefficient, and you get m equals 3. Those are my two solutions. If it was a word problem, 3 would be the only real solution because time doesn't go in negative values. So far, so good? Now, the only thing left to do is to review two word problems. So here's the first. You do the word problem? No. What you want to write down is rocket and this equation. That's it. That's what I was about to say when I started reading it. Listen to me read this. A rocket is launched into the air at a velocity of 125 feet per second. Right there, when I read that, what do? Stop reading. Why? Because there's an equation in the word problem. So all this means nothing. The only thing that matters to me is the equation and what they're asking about that equation, A and B. The word problem itself could be about raising aliens eating tomatoes. It could be about anything. What matters is the equation and what they're asking. You with me? So, anytime you see ground, floor, or like water, something hitting the ground, every time that happens, that deals with a U shape. If a frog jumps up, it goes down. Where did it touch? It touched here and there. Those are the two solutions you're getting here. So, watch. After how many seconds will it hit the ground? Whenever that happens, you're using the zero product property every time. Now, watch. 125t minus 16t squared. By the way, -16 is always in every question that involves gravity. Gravity pulls everything to the ground. At what rate? -16. It pulls it to the ground that fast. So this is all you're going to do when you see a -16. Literally that number. So watch. 125t minus 16t squared. If you try to get a common factor between 125 and 16, you can't find it. No factors from 125 go into 16. Bless you. No factors from 16 go into 125. You with me? So what if the numbers don't have anything in common? What's the only thing I can take out of here? What's the only thing they have in common? A t. So we got a t outside. What's left in there? 125 minus 16t. You with me? Now make each factor equal to 0. What's the first factor you see here? T. So t equals 0 is one answer. Now let's do the next one. 125 minus 16t equals 0. Two steps. Subtract 125 from both sides. That leaves you with -16t equals -125. And now you divide both sides by the coefficient, and we get t equals 7.8. Now we don't have to guess what this is about. This is about a rocket launching into the air, coming down. Can that happen in 0 seconds? So the only real solution is 7.8. You with me? It gives you two answers every time. Only one makes sense. How did I get what? Dividing. Negative 16, and it gives you 7.8. You're just solving for t. Like all you're doing is solving the equation. And whatever the calculator tells you, that's the answer. Now, this is a two-part question. Two-part question. So pay very close attention to this part. Here it says, what will the height be? Did they ask for height on the first question? No, they asked for seconds. So here's the hint for you. Whenever they ask for seconds, you're always doing this. Always. Okay? There's three ways to do this. This is just one, zero product property. You can use the quadratic formula with the song I'm going to teach you and all of that to get the same answer. But when they ask you for height, all you're doing is plugging in the number for t. Plug it in for t. So you have 125 t. Instead of t, what are we going to put there? 3. 3 because it says 3 seconds. Minus 16 times 3 to the second power. Now remember, exponent first. So 3 to the second power is 9. 9 times negative 16 is 144 negative. 125 times 3 is 375. And now 375 minus 144 is 231. That means that after 3 seconds, the rocket will be 231 feet in the air. How about if I ask you for 6 seconds? What would you do? Plug in a 6. 10 seconds, plug in a 10. You with me? So, next one, try it on your own. I'll give you 5 minutes. You don't have to factor it. It's already factored for you. You with me? But it's your job to tell me which is the real solution. Don't let me trick you. Go ahead. Try it. So, what are you going to write from this word problem? Grasshopper jumps and the equation. And then you can write obviously what they want and you solve it. Use the same thing we did on this page. Exact same steps, except no factoring because they already have it factored. This is harder? You're going to see how easy it is. Watch. So, after how many seconds will it hit the ground? That means I have to use a zero product property. X minus 12 equals 0. I'm going to add 12 to both sides and get x equals 12. I'm going to do the same thing to x minus 3. So my two answers are going to be x equals 12, x equals 3. But in real life, there's only one solution, one real solution here. Because he's not jumping off of the ground, he's jumping off of a desk. So, between 12 and 3, which is a real legitimate solution? 3. Why is 12 not a legitimate solution? It's too long. Too much time. Where did he jump off of? A desk. You think he's going to take 12 seconds to hit the ground off of a desk? No. He's not going to get caught in the wind and stay for 12 seconds in the air. Right? So it's not always a negative number, the one that's not the answer. The one that's obviously not the answer can be eliminated. You with me? So now on part B, write down the equation, but instead of x, put 2 in there because they want to know how high in 2 seconds. So 2 minus 12 times 2 minus 3. That would be negative 10 times negative 1, which equals positive 10. So that means in 2 seconds, the grasshopper would be 10 feet in the ground, 10 inches. I used inches here. 10 inches off the desk. You with me? If I would have said 8 seconds, same thing, but you put an 8 here.